Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies lost 2 straight games after their successful 2-0 road trip. They dropped a Friday night home game to the Hawks. Then they got smashed by the Thunder on the road on Sunday. On this episode, I will talk about both of those games. Plus, we have some injury and new signing information to go over. So I will get to that right after I tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy offers unique fantasy gaming options for cash. And their new Pick'em Champions game is now legal in Tennessee. With Underdog, you can play fantasy basketball, football, hockey, or soccer, or whatever you want. If you use my promo code FBBF when you sign up, Underdog will double your opening deposit up to $100. All right. Let's start with the injury updates, which I haven't covered yet on the show, and also talk about the newest Grizzlies number 27 and 28 of the season. Last week on March 5th, the Grizzlies gave us some injury updates on Derrick Rose and Zaire Williams. Derrick Rose was diagnosed with right osteitis pubis and will be reevaluated in 3 weeks based on the date of this PR release. That puts that somewhere around March 26th. I think we all probably are thinking to ourselves that like Derrick Rose is probably done for the season. Not necessarily. I mean, he's probably going to play on April 6th. Everybody else, I don't know. But Derrick is out for a long time. Derrick, if you were curious, has played in 3 victories this year. So, I mean, what are you supposed to say about the Derrick Rose signing? I said it all the day they signed him. A shocking and surprising move that I couldn't believe would have a positive impact on the team. And so far, I don't know. What are you supposed to say? It's good for the locker room for one of the worst teams in the NBA. Zaire Williams. The team told us he has a grade 2 strain of his hip flexor and low back muscles. He's supposed to be reevaluated in 4 weeks from the date of this release, so that puts him somewhere around April 2nd is when we would get an update about him. This season ends on April 14th, so maybe Zaire, plays the last week of the season. That's I think, a more tough injury for the team to deal with, and for Zaire specifically, because Zaire is fighting for his NBA career right now, and he had that amazing game against the Bucks right before the All-Star break. He's had a couple of nice performances, and you feel like this time of the year is for him and other guys to show, I need to be on the team next year. And so for him to get injured yet again, this is a guy who's dealt with some of these injuries that knock him out for a few weeks. It's just unlucky, and it's a bad break for Zaire. So with Derrick Rose out for multiple weeks and Zaire out for multiple weeks, and of course with Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane, among the others, out for multiple weeks, the Grizzlies got to add 2 more players to the team under these emergency 10-day contracts. They signed Wenyen Gabriel, who's been around in the league for a little bit. They also signed Deeky Jarreau, given name Dejon. Dejon Deeky Jarreau, who's been a triple-double machine on the hustle. He got called up and became the franchise record-tying 28th different player for the Grizzlies this season. We got to see both those guys play recently. Deeky had his first career points in the game on Sunday against the Thunder. Now, looking at the overall injury updates, when you also include Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart, here's the calendar for when players are supposed to be reevaluated and or return. First up, supposedly the end of this week, we're supposed to get a reevaluation of Marcus Smart. They told us on February 22nd, Marcus Smart would wear a splint for 3 more weeks and then be reevaluated. That would be somewhere around March 14th, would be exactly 3 weeks from that press release. So Marcus Smart's supposed to be reevaluated at the end of this week. And also Desmond Bane's return to play. They said he would return to play in 3 to 5 weeks, and that would put his return at this weekend. That would be the early side of that. That would be 3 weeks would be past. And so Desmond Bane is supposed to return sometime between March 14th and March 28th. And then, of course, Derrick Rose's reevaluation, March 26th, Zaire Williams, April 2nd. Now, let's talk about the basketball games. The game against the Hawks, I would call that a fun loss. The game against the Thunder, not a fun loss, a beatdown from start to finish. On Friday night, the Grizzlies got out to a 14-point lead early. They didn't have Luke Kennard because he just misses games. Also no Gigi Jackson in that game. Jordan Goodwin got the start, but you got solid performances from Jarreau and from Vince Williams Jr. and from Santi Aldama and John Conchar. And the team played pretty well overall. Unfortunately, they had a horrible second quarter. They shot 25% in that second quarter, 5 out of 20 from the field, and their 14-point lead got erased, so it was tied at halftime. And then it was a close game the whole second half, but DeJounte Murray carried the Hawks to victory. DeJounte Murray matched his career high with 41 points. He had 41 of the Hawks' 99 points. Yes, the Grizzlies held their opponent under 100 points and lost. They held one of the better offensive teams in the NBA. I mean, this is not the normal Hawks team. Of course, no Trae Young, no Onyeka Okongwu, no Jalen Johnson. So it was a shorthanded Hawks team. But normally, holding your opponent to under 100 points is good enough. It was not for the Grizzlies. They failed to score over the final 3 minutes of the game. By the way, the Grizzlies also failed to hit 100 points against the Thunder. They only had 93 points, but they did not hold the Thunder under 100. The Thunder put up 124. But the Grizzlies now this year, with these 2 games over the weekend, have now racked up 27 games where they fail to hit 105 points. That's the most such games in the NBA. They are starting to run away with it with their 27 games failing to score 105 points. They have lost all 27 of those games. The Hornets are the next closest with 25 games. The Trailblazers have 23 games. So this whole season, it's been about injuries, of course. It started off being about suspensions and injuries, and then it just became all injuries. And for whatever reason, I mean, it is the injuries, but the offense has been bad from the start. It's been awful. And it's just, I mean, you could say it's a lost season because of the injury struggles and the offensive struggles. So it's hard to, again, this whole year's been a challenge for all of us in the Grizzlies media space. Like, how do you evaluate this stuff? Is the offense bad? I mean, how do we judge it because there's been no Ja Morant? The problem, I think the concerning stuff is, like, this has been a multiple year campaign to bring in good offensive players, knowing the weakness of the team was half-court offense. We knew that 4 years ago. And there's been very little movement to that effect. Yes, we found maybe a diamond in the rough in Vince Williams Jr. That's the silver lining for this season. Gigi Jackson's getting some experience. That's a silver lining to the season. We're going to get a high draft pick. That's a silver lining to the season. But it always boils down to our offense is very, very bad. Our defense performing admirably. Hanging in these games. But continually it is the offense which lets them down. Now, for the game against the Hawks, I said, again, I thought it was a fun game. Maybe it's because of the low expectations, but, Jarreau had a solid game with 21 points. He got 9 rebounds. He blocked a couple shots. He got a couple steals. He got 3 assists. Vince Williams Jr. playing well with 14 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. I thought this game from Santi, actually on Friday night, was like the 3rd or 4th really strong game from Santi Aldama in a row. He played 32 minutes. He got 3 blocks and a steal, had 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks. If there's one thing I would complain about, not specifically to Santi, but one thing for the team about this game, overall, you'd say good defense, held the Hawks to 99 points. However, They seem very hesitant to double team DeJounte Murray ever. And again, DeJounte had 41 of the Hawks' 99 points. They were switching him constantly. You had the Hawks like putting Trey Jemison in these pick and roll things, and like Trey Jemison was on DeJounte Murray a lot. I don't understand why you're not having like DeJounte's man stay on him. Go over the screen, stay on him, and then adjust your defense. Like, I don't think you can just switch everything, and I was confused like why they did not force other guys to beat you. Like Bogdan Bogdanović can beat you. Amazing three-point shooter. Like Saddiq Bey had a horrible game. By the way, Saddiq Bey tore his ACL on Sunday. Awful news for Saddiq, who is heading into restricted free agency. But like, make Saddiq Bey beat you. Saddiq Bey had a horrible shooting night against the Grizzlies. Make the other players beat you. The Grizzlies did not. The Grizzlies mainly stayed at home and switched everything, and DeJounte Murray just destroyed him. But I guess we're nitpicking here. The talent level for the Grizzlies was super low, and most of the starters played pretty well. Jordan Goodwin, he did get the start in this game. It was one of the on nights for Goodwin as far as him being available. It was not a very good game from Jordan Goodwin. The bench was mainly okay, even though they had some bad shooting numbers. They were led by Jake LaRavia, who continued having pretty solid games. It keeps being the same story for Jake. If he could shoot, he'd be having great games, but his shooting numbers are always pretty poor, it feels like. Against the Hawks, he was 3 out of 10 from the field, but 3 more assists, 3 more steals. He got a block, got 3 rebounds. Lamar Stevens, let's call that a Lance Stevenson, Lamar Stevens mix-up. Lamar Stevens had 13 points and 5 rebounds, a steal, and 2 blocks. I mean, the Grizzlies had 10 steals as a team, 11 blocks as a team, contributing to the entertainment factor of this game. Let's talk about Lamar for just a second. So Lamar struggled a bit from the field. 3 out of 12 against the Hawks. Against the Thunder, he struggled from the field. 4 out of 12. So he's finally come back down to earth these past 2 games. In his previous 10 games, his first 10 games on the Grizzlies, he was shooting 53% overall from the field. He's been doing great. He's fun to watch. I believe he has, as they say, that dog in him. He's a solid rebounder. The way he competes, it's great. One thing he does do, and I don't know if it's a problem, but I think one thing that we do need to observe about his game is he shoots the basketball a lot. And you think it's okay. I would say it's pretty much okay when the shots are going in. When they don't go in, like in the last 2 games, maybe it raises your eyebrow a little bit higher. But some stats to illustrate how much Lamar Stevens has been taking over the Grizzlies offense. He, right now, since the All-Star break, is second on the team in usage behind Jaren Jackson Jr. He has used 23.3% of the team's possessions for the season, which just includes like 3 or 4 more games. But for this season, when he's on the court, he uses 23.3% of the team's possessions. That's like a higher usage percentage than G.G. Jackson, who loves shooting. And that's a higher percentage than Marcus Smart had when Marcus Smart played. Marcus Smart, a guy who I was questioning, like maybe he should be on the second unit because he seems to want to use every possession. And again, usage is just if the possession ends with you. Either a turnover or a shot, or if you make the assist. Like, assists are good. That's a part of usage. But that's also maybe the issue with Lamar Stevens. So Lamar Stevens, for this season, he's 4th on the team in usage percentage behind Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane. Since the All-Star break, he's 2nd on the team in usage percentage. Do you want to guess where Lamar Stevens is in assist percentage on the Grizzlies for this season? 27th. The only player who played for the Grizzlies this year to have a lower assist percentage is Shaq Harrison, because Shaq Harrison did not pick up an assist in the 18 minutes he played for the Grizzlies. So Lamar Stevens is inhaling possessions, and he does not pass. So take that information for what you will. Again, I've enjoyed Lamar Stevens. I like watching Lamar Stevens play. I think he's pretty good. But when the shot doesn't fall, then you start pointing out like, hey, you're using up a lot of these possessions. You know who doesn't use up a lot of the possessions? That's right, Luke Kennard. So Luke Kennard didn't play on Friday night. We can transition now into more of some talk about the game on Sunday against the Thunder. So low usage Luke in that game. He gets the start. All right, you look at the starting lineup. It has some players that you think are going to be maybe part of the team long term. At least guys you somewhat trust. So no Vince Williams Jr. For the game on Sunday against the Thunder. I told my Patreon supporters in the Grits and Grinds Slack channel, my interest level for the game was extremely low because it was a totally healthy, awesome Thunder team against a not healthy at all, bad Grizzlies team. And you're telling me there's no Vince Williams Jr., there's no John Conchar? I'm like, that doesn't sound great. So GG Jackson got the second start of his career. More on GG in a second. I mean, he went off for 30 points. Big asterisk to that one. Luke Kennard is starting. Santi Aldama is starting. Jaren Jackson Jr. is starting. Jake LaRavia is starting. Jake's been playing well. So you think, all right, maybe that 5, that's pretty good. No, it did not go pretty good. It went terribly. That starting lineup was outscored 22-8 to start the game, and then the rout was on. They were down by 14 after 1. 38-24 was the score at the end of the first quarter, and then they were down 21 at halftime. They were down by 34 after third quarter. But Luke Kennard, he gets the start. Let's step up, Luke. We remember the great game you had in those road victories against the Nets and the Sixers. Yeah, Luke had 3 points in this game. He was 1 for 6 on his 3-point attempts. Maybe he didn't like how his shot was going in the first half, so he didn't take any in the second half. And of course, he just played the third quarter because it was a blowout, so no one, of the usual starters played in the fourth quarter. But Luke Kennard in the second half, the third quarter against the Thunder, no stats. Ran around for 8 minutes, got some good cardio. He had 1 turnover, no shot attempts, no rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks. And then Santi Aldama, who I thought also very underwhelming game. You had this, it's the same story the whole year. Luke and Santi, everyone ahead of you on the depth chart is gone. What are you going to do? And they combined for 10 points. Very underwhelming games from those guys. Now, GG Jackson scored 30 points. Our buddy Sean Coleman lets us know he's the 5th youngest player in NBA history to have 30 points in a game. But come on now. He scored 23 of those points in the second half when the team was down by 30. So, I mean, it's fun seeing the ball go in the basket, I guess, but it was all garbage time. I like that he made, more shots than he missed, 10 out of 19 from the field, but not a lot of takeaways from this one. This was 100% garbage time. We keep playing these huge garbage time games against the Thunder. I guess that's a result of scheduling and randomness that whenever we have like a lot of minutes available for young guys, they get to play against the Thunder. Now, as hard as it's been to assess most of this year, like what do we make of the terrible offense and the bad shooting? It's impossible to talk about anything from this game. I mean, it was a blowout from start to finish. Yes, we can point out GG Jackson had 30 points. I mean, if you want to talk about anything interesting, I guess the most interesting thing is the play of Dejon Jarreau, whose name I still have trouble remembering. Deeky Jarreau, as they call him. He was fun. He definitely racked up the statistics. Most of them, admittedly, were in the fourth quarter, where he played all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter. But this guy in his first career game got 10 rebounds. He also picked up 3 steals. He had a really nice assist to Wenyen Gabriel, but I thought it was a very fun first game for Jarreau on his 10-day contract. But like some of these lineups, I mean, this was the darkest timeline game for the Grizzlies. Like if you go back to your preseason hopes and dreams and even your realistic preseason expectations, where you're like, all right, no Steven Adams, but like we can endure this. We just got to get through 25 games and John Morant will come back and we have players we like and they're good and we're going to be competing for that play-in spot. No, none of that ever happened. And I think the darkest timeline is a 5-man lineup in the first half of a basketball game where it was Deeky Jarreau, Lamar Stevens, Jake LaRavia, Wenyen Gabriel, and Trey Jemison. Most of us didn't have any idea who those people were in October when the season started. I mean, they did the same lineup in the second half, but instead of Jake LaRavia, it was Gigi Jackson. Maybe that comes across as being an even darker timeline. Like if you told me in September or in the preseason in October, hey, we're going to have a lineup in a game in early March that's Deeky, Jarreau, Lamar Stevens, Gigi Jackson, Wenyen Gabriel, and Trey Jemison, I would just do a no blinking stare at you and say, like, what has happened? So, like, I mean, those are 2 5-man lineups where you don't have to guard anybody. Like, who's going to hurt you? I mean, I guess you don't want to leave Gigi Jackson wide open from 3. It's not going to kill you, I don't think. Like, that's a non-spacing lineup of players who more than likely belong in the G League. So this one was tough, but it was fun to watch at least Deeky play his first NBA minutes. Seemed like a fun basketball player. I mean, the Wenyen Gabriel, Trey Jemison front court pairing, I mean, they hustle. They're like non-offensively skilled bigs who are just supposed to rebound out there. So, I mean, they played. I can tell you that they played. Jemison finished with 2 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Gabriel, 6 points, 5 rebounds, and a steal. Jake LaRavia didn't do a ton, although he did score in double digits again. I mean, this is now 4 straight games scoring in double figures for Jake LaRavia. Of course, he's never done that before in his young career, so maybe that's something to build on. He keeps looking okay. At least made a couple of threes. So maybe that shot might eventually come around, but I think it is what it is, which is a phrase I've been saying way too much this entire year. I don't think I said it in the first 4 years of maybe Grits and Grinds, but whatever. I keep saying it because I don't know how to assess what's going on other than just regurgitating the box score to you guys. But Jake with 13 points, 4 assists, and 2 more steals. And now, going forward, the Grizzlies have winnable games on Tuesday and Wednesday. They play the Wizards on Tuesday and the Hornets on Wednesday. They have back-to-back home games against teams that have a worse record than them, which is kind of amazing. So maybe they will be fun. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to the game on Tuesday. I'm taking my kids. It's spring break. We're going to watch Wizards Grizzlies. I hope I don't turn them off the NBA with their first ever live game being Wizards Grizzlies. But some winnable games on the horizon. By the way, since I am traveling, there will be no Grits and Grinds episode on Wednesday after the Wizards game. The next episode will come out on Thursday, March 14th, wrapping up both the Wizards and the Hornets games. And maybe we'll have some Desmond Bane and or Marcus Smart injury news in that one. And with that, I think that's all we need to talk about. I will briefly look over my notes to see if I missed anything. Oh, here's a stat, I guess we can say. So, the Grizzlies were in the game against the Hawks on Friday night. They were within 3 with a couple minutes left. Of course, didn't score in the final 3 minutes, like I said. They only scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. They keep struggling in these fourth quarters, not counting those Nets and Sixers games where they briefly came to life in the fourth quarters. But in their last 20 games, the Grizzlies have gone to clutch time, the arbitrarily defined clutch time, 16 times. In those clutch games, they've gone 6-10. But the big issue is in those clutch minutes. So in their last 20 games, we're talking about the 16 games where they went into clutch time. And these stats, I have a difficult time with them because I do think they are close to useless. But I guess I'll share them with you. Because of the arbitrary nature of the stats, where these are stats that only count when the score's within 5. If you get up by 6 or down by 6, all of a sudden we're not counting these possessions. So like you could have like one possession counted, cuts it within, or whatever. It puts you ahead by 6, the next possession not counted, but then whatever. So in these 16 clutch circumstances over their past 20 overall games, they've played 54 minutes of clutch play. And the key takeaways being in those minutes, they have a negative 22 net rating and a 97 offensive rating. So I guess that's the big takeaway, but I don't feel like the stat tells you that much that you don't already know from watching the games with your eyes. In close games, it becomes really hard for the Grizzlies to score, and that's the reason why they aren't pulling out that many of these clutch games. But again, you guys already knew that, so I appreciate your patience as I went over those numbers with you. Anyways, if you want to support this show, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. You can join the Slack channel. You can get access to exclusive bonus content, putting up an extra episode a month over there just behind the paywall. So if you want to support the show and get that material, do it at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Mark your calendars. If you live in Middle Tennessee, the next Grizzlies watch party will be Wednesday, March 27th. That's the final watch party of this regular season. So come down to Noble's Beer Hall with me. Let's have some fun, and I will give you some Grizzlies prizes if you show up. All right. Hope you guys have a great Monday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.